Are United in a title race? Now, we have had 10 games this season in all competitions, and I think it's enough of a sample size to be able to have a look at how we've gone game by game and determine whether United actually could make a case for being in a title race. Now, at the time of recording on the 30th of October, this obviously goes out on the 31st, United currently sit in 6th place in the Premier League, having played 9, won 5, drawn 1, and lost 3. And they are 6 points off Arsenal, who are currently leading, but they are only 2 points off second. So, it does make a question of, are United now seemingly in a title race? I'm going to go through game by game as to what I think about how United have done so far within the 10 games in all competitions. So we will be talking about Grimsby, unfortunately. But we have to take each game by game and determine whether there is a grounds for stating that United have a shot. So we'll start off with the first game of the season. Arsenal. It was a disappointing result. They lost 1-0 off a corner where Bayende kind of flapped at the cross coming in. Really should have punched with his right hand, didn't, and then it came into basically got flapped at, fell at the back post for Calafiori, who knocked it in for the only goal of the game. Now United were better than Arsenal on the day, and a lot of people, maybe not in the mainstream media, but a lot of fans would say that United were unlucky. Unfortunately, they did not capitalise the week after when they went to Fulham. Now, a Bruno Fernandes missed penalty may have got United all 3 points, but they did come out with a 1-1 draw. It was a fairly okay game for United in parts. They weren't fantastic the whole time, but I think they would have done enough with the Fernandes penalty to earn a 2-1 victory, which would have obviously got us our first 3 points of the game. The big black mark on the season is the EFL Cup second round game against Grimsby, where they went out on penalties. Now, two things do come to mind when this game gets brought up. One is the horrific game that Andre Onana had for United, which seemingly ended his Manchester United career, and the fact that Matheus Cunha actually had a penalty to win the game for United. Now, if Matheus Cunha did score that penalty, then United would have gone through. They would have played Sheffield Wednesday, I think, in the next round, who would have then played, and then would have played Brentford this week if they had gone through. So that's kind of the path they would have gone through. Now, I will not deny that it's a really bad result to lose to a team for tables below, I guess, or 4 leagues below. But like I said, they had chances to win the game, and they were kind of put on the back foot from an awful goalkeeping display in the first half. These are what I would class as excuses. But I would say that was the blackest moment of the season so far. They then played Burnley at home, and what you would think would be it was described by everybody as scraping through 3-2 with a last-minute Bruno Fernandes penalty. It wasn't the case. They played really well. They should have been home and hosed. They should have been away from Burnley before the goals even counted. Similar to the Brighton game, which we will get on to. But they didn't put their chances away. And they did sneak it in the end with a Fernandes penalty, but it would have been justified either way with the win and the first 3 points of the season. Then, the worst game, I would say, for United in the league, which was the derby at City. Now, a 3-0 loss is very much a bad loss in that sense. I think the score pretty much justified the performance. They played better in the second half, but that, I would say, is more due to the fact that City took their foot off the gas rather than United actually coming out and playing. At that time, United were seemingly doing the same things they were doing last season, where they were losing games where they'd go behind and they would just capitulate and nothing would come of it. So that was something that has been a factor throughout this season, and that is something that I would hesitate on still at this moment in time. And then we have the Chelsea game. Now, Chelsea went down to 10 men really early in this game. United got 2 goals. Then Casemiro gets himself sent off, and Chelsea get a goal about 10 minutes from time. Other than the goal, though, Chelsea didn't really provide any sort of form of threat, even in the second half when it was 10 apiece in terms of players. So I don't think that one... I'd say that United played quite well in that game and justifiably got 3 points in that game as well. We then went away to Brentford and were poor again. I wouldn't say for the whole game because they did get themselves back into it. They had a penalty to goal level, which again Fernandes missed. This has become a theme of this season. That penalties missed are kind of blighting our season. We as I said, the one at Fulham, the one at Grimsby, and now the one at Brentford. They're all away games as well. So apropos, if Fernandes gets that penalty away for 2-2, do you see United coming on and winning it? I'd say so, possibly. I think that also, and I think it did come out from PGMOL that they got the decision wrong on the penalty itself, whereby it should have been a red card for the defender rather than a yellow, which I didn't understand at the time because Bryan Mbeumo, if he's not pulled back, is getting a shot away there, and that's a goal-scoring opportunity. So how, because he's prevented that, how was Pinnock not sent off? I didn't really understand that. But if it had gone United's way, realistically, they would have scored the penalty, the man would have been sent off, and United would have most likely, I wouldn't say they would have, but they most likely would have gone on and won that game. Then we have the last 3 games. The Sunderland game, United played very well, limited Sunderland to very few chances, and looked quite solid in doing so. And it was also the game in which Benjamin Sesko got his first home goal. He obviously got the away goal at Brentford the week prior. Again, it was a good performance. I'd say it was the start of the solid performances that we've been having over the last few weeks, and there was something to build on. We obviously built on that quite substantially when we then went to Anfield and won with a Harry Maguire header with about 7 minutes to play, I think it was. Something like that, 7-8 minutes to play. I don't know. It's very difficult to remember how many added minutes there were in a game for Liverpool. They've had so many. But again, that was a very good controlled game from United, picking off the second balls from the long ball forward. And there was an obvious tactic there that meant that they were kind of counteracting Liverpool to the best of their abilities, which works because they obviously won for the first time at Anfield in nearly a decade. That was then obviously followed up this week by a 4-2 victory at home against Brighton. Brighton are quite a big bogey team for United. They like to lose 3-1 to them. They actually won 4-2 this time around. And I would say, apart from that little point near the end where obviously they got the second back Brighton, there was a bit of a point in which obviously Brighton got their tails up and they thought they could win. But the Bryan Mbeumo goal obviously sealed it right at the end. Now, looking at those 10 games, obviously we picked out the 2 things that I would pick out the most out of those first 10 games are goalkeeping errors and penalty misses, in a sense. So, obviously, the goalkeeping errors come in the Arsenal game and the Grimsby game, and the penalty misses come in the Fulham game, the Grimsby game, and the Brentford game. Since Saint-Lamont has been brought in the Sunderland game, obviously Sunderland, Liverpool, and Brighton, we've looked a lot better from a goalkeeping perspective, because I do think that Lamont is a very competent goalkeeper. I don't have to say he's got amazing quality. I just think he's more competent than what we had in Bayende and Onana. So that is kind of just looked at and kind of justified. The penalty situation is more luck, I would say, than anything. I guess that maybe Fernandes needs to work on technique, although he has scored a penalty in the league in between the 2 he missed. But Bruno Fernandes maybe having a bit of a down point in penalty taking. We have a lot of penalty takers. If he misses another, you'd expect it to change. Someone like a Burmo, Cunha, even Šeško. They'll all be surely willing to take a penalty in the game. So where do I see United? Well, I see United at 6th right now, and a fairly decent run of games would help, which I do think they do have. They obviously go to Forest this weekend. I think it's a winnable game. They're a team trying to transition back to a way of playing that they played under Nuno. There is a counteract that can be done for that. I think the Tottenham game, with Tottenham, it's so weird because they are very hit, very miss a lot of the time. So they could come out against United and play really well, but they could also be really bad at the same time. But we do really owe them one for 4 losses last season. And then a home game against Everton, away at Palace, home to West Ham, and away to Wolves. That gets us to the 13th of December, where we then play Bournemouth, Villa, and Newcastle, which would have be harder games going into the end of the year. Now, I'm looking at the end of basically the 30th of December with the game at Wolves at home. They're the next 10. So it's basically Forest away, Tottenham away, Everton at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, Newcastle at home, and then Wolves away. They're the next 10. I'd say that if we're in a similar position to what we were then, now than when we were, if we are then, so say we take another 16 points, gets us to 32, we're looking positive after 20 games. Well, it would be 19 games in the league, 20 games in total. I may reassess this in at the end of the year and say how I feel. However, I think it's a positive sign that we are getting a lot of wins. We've obviously won 3 on the bounce, back-to-back wins, something we hasn't done under Amorim so far, and that's now been and gone. Let's build on this. Let's build on what we're doing. We're tweaking the formation slightly. The formation itself is staying as is. It's still a 3-4-3 in the sense of a 3-4-2-1. It's just slight adaptations allowing for the tactics to work perfectly, which is working against teams like the Sunderlands, obviously Brighton last week, and obviously going to Anfield and winning for the first time in nearly 10 years. I think this team has a lot of potential and that they could definitely kick on. I don't think they are. It's difficult because I asked the question at the beginning, are United in a title race this season? I don't think they are. But what I do think they are is I think they are competent enough to get a European place. And I'm willing to step my neck out on the line and say they possibly could get a Champions League spot. And I don't think that is out of the realms of possibility that's with the start they've had. They've played teams that are of a high quality at the start of this season. They've played Arsenal. They've played City. They've played Chelsea. They've played Liverpool. That's 4 games of. They are what was the top 4 last season, I believe, or 4 of the top 5. Those teams have all been played. Now you're not going to play another one of those teams now until January. So January 17th and then January 24th, it's City at home and Arsenal away. That's the next time you play one of the top 4. So maybe the next 10 games going into the end of the year with the games we've mentioned, there's a possibility of building on what we're making, and we should be able to get a good chunk of points out of this end of year. I can see us getting 3 from Forest. For Tottenham, I would take a draw. I'd take a point. I think 3 from Everton. I think Palace are a difficult side again. Another point would do for me. Maybe even possibly the loss because they can be quite tricky. They've obviously gone to Liverpool and won twice this season. West Ham, I think, will beat. Wolves, I think, will beat. Bournemouth are playing quite well at this moment in time, but you never know. They could drop quality or standards, or there just could be a lull in their game by mid-December. Villa away is always a bit of a tricky one, depending on how they're playing. Newcastle at home and then Wolves at home. there's definitely 3, maybe 6 points in that. You're looking at a decent amount of chunk of points between the start of November, the end of December. Why can't we be in the hunt? I'd like to see us in the hunt. It's just whether the players play the same way, or the playing quality that they have been playing over these last 3 weeks, especially. I would say that obviously the blips have been, obviously the Grimsby game is a big one, the City game and the Brentford game, but they have been consistently getting results, whether it not be week to week, but it has been game to blip to game in a sense. Maybe one step forward, one step back, but they're not losing games repeatedly like they were doing last season, and they're winning matches, and that's something they weren't doing a lot of last season. It's interesting to look at, but hopefully the positive vibes around United at the moment, which you're seeing week in, week out, especially when they're winning games incredibly at Anfield and stuff like that. Hopefully that will continue, and we'll be able to keep going with how we're playing. And you never know. I think we will review this again in 2 months once we've played another 10 games. We've got no other competitions to be in other than the FA Cup, which doesn't start till the new year. So it's 10 games between now and the end of December. Let's see how they do. Let's see how United progress. It's an international break in the middle of November, which is a bit of a pain. But again, by the end of December, the 30th of December is the final game of the season. That following Friday, which will be the 2nd of January, we will reassess what's going on just before the Leeds game that weekend, and we'll see how where we're at. Maybe United are in the title race. Who knows? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Are United in a title race, or are they just a team that should be pushing for European places? Let me know down in the comments below. Like this video if you have. Subscribe if you are new. Until next time, guys. Take care.